Hello and welcome to the news on NTA International. I am Dennis Adegunloye. Let's begin with the headlines. Iran awaits new supreme leader. Late Ayatollah Khamenei's son, Mujtaba Khamenei, looks hopeful. Women in United Nations call for justice and action that will guarantee their inclusion in development. And Nigeria settles OML 245. We'll bring you a report on how President Tinubu resolved the dispute. The announcement by President Bola Tinubu on the successful conclusion of a historic settlement between the federal governments of Nigeria and international companies over oil prospecting license 245 has been widely described as a big win for Nigeria. State House correspondent Musbah Damahab highlights how the administration ended the 30-year dispute and renewed the hope of OPL 245 after lost battles.
Oil prospecting license OPL 245 is a resource-rich deep water oil block offshore in the central Niger Delta, but instead of its potential manifesting in contribution to the overall economy of Nigeria, OPL 245 has made the country popular for the wrong reasons internationally. With a resource at the depth of over 1,000 meters below the sea, so too has it been in deep controversy for about 3 decades. From the popular Malabu Gate to another round of litigation with an Italian oil giant, Eni, the case has been internationally referred to as one of the largest corporate bribery scandals in the oil industry. The legal battle over the Nigeria's Niger Delta resource has been largely fought across Europe since 2011. Of these litigations, Eni and its partners have put up defenses including the claims that the cost of the operation was fair and reasonable, that Eni made the payment directly to the government, that it was unaware of how Malabu used the fund, that any senior management received no bribes, and that Eni complied with the audit procedures. With these, Nigeria lost all the cases across Europe.
Well, let me repeat it, Nigeria lost all. The reason was that there was actually no basis for such cases. The ones that we did against them in Nigeria too were lost. The ones that we even took against JP Morgan in London were lost. In fact, we got a penalty of over 70 million pounds.
But then, with a shrewd accountant and a former chief auditor of an international oil conglomerate at the helm of affairs, Nigeria decided to pursue the path of peace in the interest of the nation.
President Bola Tinubu gave approval that the Honorable Attorney General, the Minister of Justice, and myself, take all necessary steps to resolve that matter. And so we started engagement, with E&I. It took us, from sometime in October 2023 to March 2026 to resolve, this matter. And we're happy that eventually the matter is resolved and Nigerians can, have the full benefit of the requisite investment that is needed in that very prolific oil block.
Now, the efforts paid off as President Bola Tinubu, at the latest meeting with the concerned parties, announced the successful conclusion of a historic settlement agreement between the federal government of Nigeria, Eni, and Nigerian Ajib Exploration Limited. It is a huge relief over the long-standing disputes. The new agreement is now expected to pave the way for the development of one of Nigeria's most significant deep water resources.
As part of the engagement, has already, made it very clear to E&I that we want the final investment decision to be made before the end of the year. And having lost so much time, we want them to expedite every step to ensure that the investment decisions and the actual investments is done within this year. And once that is done, the values will begin to come.
President Tinubu reaffirmed his administration's commitment to resolving legacy disputes, restoring investors' confidence, and ensuring that Nigeria's natural resources deliver sustainable value to the Nigerian people. He believes this resolution sends a clear signal to global investors that Nigeria is prepared to address legacy issues transparently, uphold the rule of law, and create a stable environment for long-term capital. In Abuja, Musbah and Wahab, NC News.
Now, following Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's death, discussions have become rife as to who will succeed him. As significant as it has triggered the most important political transition in the Islamic Republic since the 1979 Islamic Revolution, which resulted in the ouster of the Pahlavi dynasty. According to Iran's constitution, the Assembly of Experts is responsible for choosing the next supreme leader. Who are the prospective candidates? Mojtaba Hosseini Khamenei, 56, the son of the supreme leader, or the late supreme leader, is frequently mentioned as a possible successor. The second eldest child of Khamenei, Mojtaba, served in the Iran-Iraq War from 1987 to 1988. Although he holds no formal government position, he is believed to have significant influence behind the scenes, especially within security circles. Ali Reza Arafi, 66, is a senior cleric and a member of both the Guardian Council and the Assembly of Experts. He also serves as the Friday prayer leader of QOM and heads Iran's seminary network. His strong religious background and close ties to the current leadership make him a potential contender. His appointments by Khamenei over the years have strengthened his position within Iran's religious establishment. Another potential contender is Mohammed Mehdi Mirbagheri, 65, who represents the hardline wing of Iran's clerical establishment. He leads the Islamic Sciences Academy in Qom and sits on the Assembly of Experts. He supports strict clerical rule and rejects Western political models, positions that appeal to conservative factions. Now, joining me in the studio to talk more on the developments in Iran, we have Professor Mukhtar Imam of the National Institute for Security Studies, and he will give us his take on the role international diplomacy can play to de-escalate tensions in the Middle East. Prof, you're welcome to our studios.
Thank you, my pleasure.
All right, just give us your thoughts on how diplomatic efforts can facilitate a ceasefire and de-escalation in the current conflict in the Middle East.
Thank you very much. Well, in the space of diplomacy, it is apparent, and this is what it has been from time immemorial, that no war has ever been won or lost on the battlefield. Every war has always returned to the negotiating table. Diplomacy has always been, the resolution, the end drive, the go-to place for every war and conflict that the world has witnessed from time immemorial up till this moment. This is not going to be any different. Diplomacy is obviously the way to go. It was the way that it started, led by the Omanis. And of course, the Omani foreign minister was very clear when he made his position known to the world that this was in Geneva when he hosted the warring parties. And his position was that the diplomatic communication was yielding result, and they were beginning to witness some breakthrough. But amidst all of that, Trump and of course Benjamin Netanyahu decided to unilaterally carry out the action of invading the sovereign entity called Iran. So therefore, it is apparent that for this conflict to come to an end, it will eventually have to return back to the diplomatic table where negotiations will be done. However, given that the bilateral, if you like, involvement. Of course, it was a multilateral situation concerning three various parties with an intermediate party, which was Oman at the time. Considering that we're witnessing that is breaking down, I do believe that the United Nations Security Council will be should be the anchor to have all warring parties return back to the negotiating table. I do believe that this can be brought forward. I am hopeful that it has by any of the countries around the Security Council to ensure that some very important emergency meeting is called at the Security Council so that this issue can be tabled and it can be resolved. Of course, the veto power of the United States is going to be brought to bear. Nonetheless, I do believe that with the involvement of countries like Russia and China and France and their weight around the Security Council, we should be seeing some resolution very soon, hopefully.
All right, what would you say are the key challenges to effective diplomacy in resolving this conflict? And on top of what you said, how can they be further addressed?
Well, the first challenge was the fact that, one of the parties, being the United States, of course, in this context, alongside Israel, decided to disrupt the ongoing process, the ongoing diplomatic talk, which was, beginning to yield results from what we heard from the Omani foreign minister, like I said earlier. That in itself was, a blow to any sort of meaningful peace process, because of course the fact of the matter is that the Iranians were not very hopeful of the United States going through with the process. They were very doubtful of the United States, and that was leading to the strikes a couple of months ago on their facilities. And so the Iranians were very, very skeptical. Nonetheless, they came to the negotiating table to have this conversation, first in Oman and then, of course, in Geneva. Given that the United States has, of course, carried out this action unilaterally, it was a blow to the diplomatic process. Nonetheless, like I said, it is still the way to go. These diplomatic channels are always open, and they're the best shot we have at any immediate peace. But first things we need to begin to see is a cessation of hostility. The United Nations, particularly led by the Security Council, needs to call the US and Israel to order to ensure that they withdraw and stop the aerial bombardments currently going on in Iran. And of course, I do believe, just like the Iranian foreign minister said, if the bombardment stops, this is me quoting him, and some meaningful explanation is given to us as to why this invasion started in the first place, then we're willing and ready to return back to the negotiating table, end of quote. So I think the Iranians are, open to having that dialogue because their stand has been the same from time immemorial, from get-go, that they do not intend to enrich uranium to the level where they will have nuclear capabilities. And so I believe that with push from the United Nations Security Council, because as it stands now, the international community is the only, panacea to bringing an end to this. Nobody else can speak to Trump. You heard what he said. He said the war would range on as long as he feels it. It's about his feeling, So here we are. Absolutely.
We certainly hope that negotiations are back as soon as possible with the diplomatic resolution to this conflict. Professor Mukhtar Imam, many thanks for your thoughts.
My pleasure.
All right, so this is news on NTA International. We'll take a break. More reports in a moment. Welcome back. The ongoing conflict between the United States, Israel and Iran has reached a boiling point, with large-scale strikes on Iranian targets and retaliatory attacks on U.S. and Israeli military assets in the Middle East. As the situation continues to unfold, Comfort Fashion takes us through the snapshots of the current state of play on day 9 of the war.
Assessing the day 9 of the war between U.S., Israel and Iran, here are some key points. And let's begin with military attacks and rising casualties. At least 1,332 people have been killed since Israel and the U.S. launched attacks on February 28. The U.S. and Israel have also struck oil storage depot and refining facilities for the first time in the country, with massive fire raging Sharan oil depot on the outskirts of Tehran. From the U.S. side, President Donald Trump continues to demand an unconditional surrender from Iran. And Trump also claimed that the U.S. has wiped out Iran's navy. Iran has also continued its retaliatory mission with attacks on U.S. and Israeli military assets in Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. Though Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian has expressed a desire for good relations with neighboring countries, but tensions persist, with the latest Iranian drone strike on a government building in Kuwait and U.S. embassy in Oslo. And on maritime threats and oil trade, the Iranian military confirmed that the Strait of Hormuz remains open, but it explicitly stated that it would target any U.S. or Israeli ships attempting to pass through. Oil prices have surged, with Brent crude climbing 27% in just 1 week as the war disrupts global markets. On day 9 of the war, the conflict continues to escalate, with military attacks and rising casualties, U.S. demands and threats, Iranian retaliation and regional dynamics, maritime threats and oil trade disruptions. The situation remains highly volatile and unpredictable, with far-reaching consequences for the Middle East and the global economy. And moving on, the remains of 6 U.S. soldiers who died in the ongoing face-off between U.S., Israel and Iran have been returned home in a dignified ceremony attended by President Donald Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, military officials and the soldiers' families. The tragic incident occurred on the 1st of March when an Iranian drone struck their tactical operations center at Port Shuaibah, Kuwait. Initially, the U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, reported 3 deaths, but the toll rose to 6 after previously unaccounted for personnel were recovered and 1 service member succumbed to death due to severe injuries. Now let us come to Africa. In a show of support for Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko's efforts to tighten laws criminalizing homosexuality in Senegal, hundreds marched through the streets of Dakar. The crowd, organized by the Domo Dara Patriots Movement, MODAP, rallied outside the Islamic Institute of Dakar, carrying banners and chanting slogans. The movement, which considers homosexuality to be unnatural and condemned by God, is pushing for a bill to strengthen existing laws. Minister of Culture, Amadou Ba, voiced his support for the efforts, highlighting that the government led by Prime Minister Sonko holds a majority in Parliament, increasing the likelihood of the bill passing. With the crowd rallying behind them, MODAP member Muhammadu Mansour Ndiaye emphasized that the movement's commitment to the cause, saying, "We are pleased to follow the sovereign initiative undertaken by the state of Senegal under the leadership of Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko." All right, foot in the air and crash helmet on. The UK wife carrying race takes place in Surrey, England, with teams running up and down a hill in a quirky tradition with finished routes. This is quite interesting as we celebrate the International Women's Day. Take a look.
Well done on coming last. Take care of everyone here. Heaviest pair, not heaviest wife.
So that is how much we can take on the global updates. I am Comfort Fashim.
Many thanks, Comfort. I wonder how that sport would look here in Nigeria. Now, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, has called for renewed commitment to gender equality and stronger protection for women and girls as Africa joins the rest of the world to mark International Women's Day 2026. In a commemorative message, the AU Commission chairperson praised the contributions of women within the Commission and across the continent, noting that their leadership and service continue to strengthen Africa's development agenda. He reaffirmed the continent's commitment to gender equality through key frameworks, including the Maputo Protocol and the African Union Convention on Ending Violence Against Women and Girls, urging member states yet to do so to sign and ratify the convention. The statement also stressed that violence against women remains a major human rights issue that threatens peace, public health and sustainable development. The chairperson further noted that this year's commemoration aligns with the AU theme on water and sanitation, highlighting the heavy burden on women and girls who face water collection issues and the need for greater investment in water infrastructure. He reaffirmed that the aspirations of African women and girls remain central to Agenda 2063 and called for sustained efforts to build a more inclusive and equitable continent. Meanwhile, First Lady Oluremi Tinubu says empowering women is not an act of charity, but an investment in the nation's collective future. This is in her message marking 2026 International Women's Day, where she joins millions of Nigerians and the global community in celebrating the strength, courage, tenacity and achievements of women and girls across Nigeria and around the world. Reflecting on the theme of the celebration, rights, justice, action for all women and girls, the First Lady submits that when women are given access to education, healthcare, economic empowerment, leadership platforms, justice and equity, the society gains stronger families, more prosperous communities, and a more inclusive nation. Now, accessing medical care, especially when it involves terminal diseases, becomes a nightmare due to its financial implications. To help reduce this burden, Rotary Club of Wuse Central organized a free medical outreach for women as part of its activities to mark International Women's Day. Francis Udojo has details.
Breast and cervical cancers are the most prevalent terminal diseases that affect women. Based on 2022 World Health Organization (WHO) data, an estimated 670,000 deaths globally is caused by breast cancer, with 2.3 million new cases diagnosed, making it the most common cancer in women in 157 countries. For Rotary Club of Wuse Central, the International Day of Women, which has this year's theme as Give to Gain, is a golden opportunity to show love, sensitization, hence the free medical outreach focusing on breast and cervical cancer screening for 200 women in Abuja.
Come check your health status, but basically what we're actually looking at today is women checking for breast cancer screening and cervical cancer screening, because that's the best thing you can give to yourself today, health, peace, and that's what we're doing.
Health experts say genetic, obesity, smoking, exposure to too much radiation are risk factors for cancer, while human papilloma virus is a cause for cervical cancer. They advocate early detection, consume foods and fruits with vitamin C, and as well be sexually responsible, especially for underage.
In this part of the world, there's a lot of need for sensitization about cervical cancer and the screening method for it, which is part of what we're doing here by organizing free pap smears, okay, for the women. So that is the reason why. So that in doing this, we can, in our own little way, contribute to limiting or reducing the morbidity rate of these two conditions.
Care for yourself, check yourself, make sure you're fine.
Rotary Club is a non-governmental and charitable organization committed to humanitarian services. Francis Dojo, NT News.
The Civil Society Legislative and Advocacy Centre, CISLAC, is calling for transformative reforms in laws, policies and institutional practices to accelerate the development, protection and full participation of women and girls in Nigeria, advising that recent developments indicate a troubling backsliding on gains previously achieved in advancing women's rights and inclusion. In a statement issued by the Executive Director of CISLAC, Awal Musa Rafsanjani, the organization noted that there are barriers to the progress made over the years in raising awareness on gender equality, structural inequalities, discrimination, and limited representation in decision-making spaces, which have continued to undermine the full participation of women in Nigeria's democratic and development processes. According to CISLAC, the absence of strong affirmative action measures within political party structures continue to restrict women's access to elective and appointive positions, thereby limiting their influence in shaping public policies and governance. While recognizing the resilience and contributions of Nigerian women across sectors, including governance, business, education, healthcare, and community leadership. Well, that concludes the news on NT International. Thank you for watching. I am Dennis Adigunloye.